If you're a facilities manager at a university, you know students rely on the cafeteria for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the occasional late-night snack. So when a dishwasher breaks down and dirty plates pile up, the mess hall can turn messy in the blink of an eye. Enter Grainger. With over 1 million industrial-grade products and fast delivery, the product you need now is never far away. So you can turn that dishwasher back into a lean, clean washing machine. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, die-in time is here. That's right, we're talking about The Monkey on Kill by Kill. Well, greetings and salutations, Internet. It's your old pal, Patrick Hamilton, coming to you once again from Casco, Maine. This is the Kill by Kill podcast, where we're dedicated to celebrating the least discussed component of any horror film, the characters, and we're going to unpack all the goriest details of 2025's The Monkey in the hopes that a random individual's untimely end is just the beginning of the jokes we might make at their expense. And as always, there's only one person I trust not to scratch her head with a loaded fucking pistol. The one, the only, Gina Radcliffe. How are you doing today, Gina?
I don't know that you can trust me not to do that.
Oh, boy. See, here's the thing about this, right? Sometimes we strain the credulity of our plot, of the sort of raison d'etre of Kill by Kill, which is to discuss characters. We get into other areas. We analyze the movie. We like to go into backgrounds. We like to make japes and jabs. But this movie is filled with characters.
Yeah, it's very broad characters, and it's intentional. It knows what it's doing.
Yes. And we should, because this has just come out, and this will come out, the 1 week after it's landed in theaters. So not everyone will have gone to go see it, although it opened very well in a very competitive box office environment. We love that for Neon. We love that for Osgood Perkins. And we love that for this movie in particular. That being said, before we go into spoilers, what is your sort of, I'm not going to reveal anything, attitude towards 2025's The Monkey, Gina?
I had a lot of fun with it. I don't think it was particularly scary. I think that, the choice that he made to turn a very, very bleak short story into something almost, well, I don't want to say almost, it was a lot of fun.
Yes.
And I don't know if hopeful is the right word, but sort of like, the attitude being, fuck it, we're all going to die. Might as well have fun with your life. Yeah. And I appreciate the personal angles he put into it.
Yes. In fact, I have a quote from Mr. Perkins that I enjoyed very much. One thing I didn't know going into this was that this was a job he was hired to do. It wasn't an Osgood Perkins passion project. The Black Bear had the rights to it. They hired him to come in and write and direct. I had a previous script that they had developed with Atomic Monster, so James Wan and company. And Perkins goes, I took liberties with that script like a motherfucker. Atomic Monster had a very serious script, very serious. And I felt it was too serious. And I told them, this does not work for me. This thing is about a toy monkey. And a whole lot of people die around it in insane ways. So I thought, well, I am an expert on that. Both my parents died in insane headline-making ways. And I spent a lot of my life recovering from that tragedy, feeling quite bad. And it all seemed inherently unfair. And you start to personalize the grief. Why is this happening to me? But I'm older now, and you realize that this shit happens to everyone. Everyone dies. Sometimes it's in their sleep. Sometimes it's in a truly insane way, like what I experienced. But everyone dies. And I thought maybe the best way to approach that insane notion is with a smile. And I appreciate that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. 100%. I went long on this for my newsletter, which will be out the same day as this. And came up from a very personal angle because I almost died a few years ago, and
sure,
it does change your attitude about things a little bit, and like I said, if you've read the short story, and it's I think it is the first story in Skeleton Crew, which is funny because I read a review of the movie, a very positive review, who described The Monkey as one of the lighter stories.
Oh dear, no, I don't know.
One of the lighter stories.
Oh my!
The one where like a dog has an explosive brain aneurysm. That's one of the lighter stories. One thing I will say, that in making it humorous, he does kind of pull his punches a little bit, right? Because in the short story, it kills animals. There's a lot of children, a lot of dead children, and he doesn't quite go that far here. Although there is a flaming baby stroller.
There's a flaming baby stroller.
But we don't see what happens to the baby, or if there's even a baby in there. But yeah, that's about as far as it goes. It seems to reserve its randomness towards adults. So I would still say that if you're looking for something that's going to give you nightmares, go with the story.
Right. Yeah.
But this is a lot of fun.
It definitely was an emphasis on comedy over horror. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It's hard to find that perfect edge to it.
Like nobody's dying of a heart attack or anything. It's the most ridiculous deaths.
Yes, it is all over the top. It is all grand guignol. I had seen one snippet of him talking about it, that the physical effects crew had a giant truck and they had to calculate how much blood would be in a regular human body. And he said they would always arrive to set with 5 times that much. So he always knew how the effects were going to turn out, which is bloodier than you would imagine. And he's just rolled with it. This is a movie in which you just roll with it. My audience, as I had mentioned to Gina before we started rolling, I was very into enjoying this movie and laughing along with it. And the rest of the audience was stone cold sober, and almost as if they didn't understand the movie they had come to see.
Yeah, the cinema score for this was not great. I think it was a C+.
But horror movies always, like, it is the rare one that's going to come away with the best. Like even Hard Eyes, which is about as audience pleaser a horror movie as you're ever going to come across, that was still in the B's. Like you cannot satisfy people who go to horror movies.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, did people feel misled? Because I think the trailers do a pretty good job of letting you know that this is meant to be funny.
Yes, it absolutely sold the movie it is. So coming into it, well, and that's the other thing, is that while horror always has these elements to it that someone can hearken back to and go, I was creeped out. I was genuinely scared. I jumped. So therefore, I am satisfied. Comedy is much more a personal tuning fork. You don't know what's going to make some people laugh and what some won't actually cause that reaction in other people. So I do think it is a bit more dangerous to go the horror comedy route, as we will discuss in greater detail a little bit later on in the year when we tackle a whole bunch of successful and unsuccessful horror comedies. When it came to my experience with the film, I enjoyed it very much, but my audience was a little bit of a limp noodle up until the trailer for his next movie, which is coming out this year. So
yeah, I did not expect to get a James Bond-esque, Oz Perkins will be back.
with this other thing, with a John Carpenter font on it, just so you can differentiate the kind of Osgood Perkins movie you're going to get. But Perkins has always had, an undercurrent of madcap humor to what he's doing. It's just that he tends to tune that into shock and surprise and a disquieting nature. Like, is this that far afield from Longlegs? It certainly is for the first half of Longlegs, and the second half of Longlegs, I would say, is much more along the lines of The Monkey.
Yeah, no, you can, when you watch Longlegs, you can see that there's an absurd sense of humor to this.
Yeah,
I remain convinced that the singing scene was meant to elicit uncomfortable laughter.
Right, yes. Because you can't believe someone would keep doing that.
Right, like, what in the fuck is happening here?
Right, someone tell me what is going on, because this isn't normal. The longer this goes, the less sure I am of understanding anything that's happening on the screen.
You know, I mean, I think that Nicolas Cage is supposed to be an absurd villain.
He's so dissatisfied with his own body, he can't wait to get into other people's. Like, that's the shtick, right?
I mean, just because, absurd doesn't cancel out being scary.
Right, yeah. Whereas here, they're jokes. We are going from the moment the movie begins into serious joke categories.
Like, people literally explode. Yeah, these aren't just like, oh, I had a heart attack, or oh, I got hit by a car. I mean, this is just like it's nonsense, but in a good way. But it also, but all it's basically doing is exaggerating the fact that death is often sudden and very messy. Yeah. I mean, I couldn't help thinking that I can no longer remember the number, but a percentage of how many people, to put it politely, evacuate themselves at the point of death. And it's just like, you think that you're going to get this, oh, I love my family. And then like your head, drops to the side, you close your eyes, but no, people die with their eyes open. People die with dumb expressions on their faces. People had to be scraped off the highway. It's like, you don't know, and there's no guarantee. And
it's something that happens to all of us. I mean, this is not giving anything away. The movie is very much about death in the sense that it is something that occurs all around us all day long, only you're not always personally connected to it. And when you are, it feels like you're the only one personally connected to it. And one's reaction to that, obviously sadness and grief are part of that. And that's completely understandable. But how you deal with those things really can change and sour who you are as a person. And we kind of get two sides of the same coin in our main characters, who happen to be twins. Those kid actors
I honestly had no idea that was the same kid. I was very impressed with that.
Absolutely. Some of the best kid acting I've seen in a really long time. The younger version of Hal and Bill. You know what? Let's get into spoiler territory, because I want to go into detail, and we both really like this movie.
Yeah.
This is Kill by Kill recommended all the way. If you're listening to the show, you're probably gonna like it. Although, hey, if you don't, no worries, man. One's personal reaction to art does not, dissuade me from enjoying what I enjoyed or not enjoying what I didn't. So you're fine too. Let's get into spoiler territory right away. We open with a cameo I did not know was going to be in this movie. This had not been spoiled for me. I had no concept this was happening, that Adam Scott is in the cold open of this motion picture.
You didn't know he was in that? I think I read it somewhere that he was in it.
I tried to go in as cold as possible, and I had just been lucky with this one. Also, oh my God, my trailers were the same goddamn trailers over and over and over and over again. Just some variety, people.
What did I get? I got Until Dawn, which I'd seen before. It was all horror.
Oh, and see, mine was half action shit. It's the same. It was Novocaine. It was A Working Man. It's the same shit over and over and over again. The only thing new I got was Hell of a Summer.
Yeah, I got that one. I got that one.
Well, it's a neon movie, and it's also a horror comedy. So we'll see how that goes.
Only two I can remember off the top of my head are that and Until Dawn, which I didn't know that was based on video games. I have no knowledge of video games whatsoever. My daughter.
I know it exists. Yeah, but I've never played it. My son doesn't do horror games yet, but I know of its existence in the world.
Can't remember anything else I got, so I must not have made a huge impression on me.
So getting into this, Adam Scott plays, I guess he was an airline captain. He wasn't just in dress up. We meet him absolutely covered in blood. He's trying to offload an organ grinder monkey that is the titular monkey here. And for whatever reason, he's trying to play very fast and loose with how he gets this off his hands. I don't know why he can't just walk away from it, or he feels like that because it teleports, he has to get somebody to pay money, even if it's $1, to walk away from it.
Yeah, I would assume that he thinks that, somebody has, money has to be exchanged for it so that it essentially belongs to someone else after that. What I think is, one of the things I appreciate, and this is true of the short story too, is there's really no explanation about where this monkey came from or why it has attached itself to this family. Mm-hmm. And I think the explanation is because everybody has one.
Right.
There
just happens to be physical.
Right. It's, you could use that, you could define the phrase "a monkey on your back." Mm-hmm. And I think just, this is, everybody has one of these.
Over the course of the movie, there's all of the grief and anger, bargaining that happens with death metaphors. And since we've already had one of those this year, I won't drag the audience all the way through it yet again. But it is this thing where you figure safety is getting far away from the possibility of death. And what you always have to remind yourself is while sometimes it comes from outside, more often than not, it comes from inside. You cannot escape it. You cannot avoid everything failing within this fragile shell of fleshy blood.
Right.
Surrounded by fun skeletons.
Yeah, and we're never actually certain if Adam Scott's character, we don't know what becomes of him. He just disappears. Yeah. And it's like, well, did he disappear as in he just keeps, he's gotten as much, miles away between him and this monkey as possible, or, is he just dead naturally, or did he, die in some horrific way, which is also natural when you think about it. That's a thing we distinguish is, there's a natural death, which is, a heart attack. And then there's unnatural deaths, which is everything that isn't a heart attack. Yeah. And it's just like, well, either way, your heart stops. So, yeah. They're all natural deaths. There's a difference, when you say unnatural, what you mean is untimely. And then that's to you, not to the forces that are that determine that kind of thing.
I really enjoyed Tatiana Maslany, as I do almost every time I catch her on screen. She's just a very grounded presence, and she can do comedy, and she can do drama, and she can be high-strung characters, and she can be the high status and low status. She just has the ability to morph into whatever you need her to be. And in here, she is that warm, calming, grounded, motherly presence that these boys need. Even though, for whatever reason, she seems disconnected from them being two separate people. She almost views them as two halves of a whole. And as such, she views one's behavior as the other's behaviors. And Bill is way tougher a sell. He's got an attitude problem. He's like a Bart Simpson. In a lot of ways.
This review I read described him as a classic Stephen King bully.
True,
which is interesting because that character that's not present in the story. They're not. There are brother characters, but they're not twins and. For as long as the one brother is in it, they get along normally.
But I think so much of this movie is Stephen King coded.
Oh, sure.
It's just stuff that Osgood Perkins wants to enrich the story with. He obviously understands how a Stephen King story works, even though he doesn't want to do it as dryly and as serious as the short story or the adaptations that had come up to this point are trying to do it. But he's still infused. It's like he's basting a turkey. It's still being all the drippings are being basted on top of it to really cook in the Stephen King.
Yeah, I do like Tatiana Maslany's character. She's very pragmatic, as a lot of hardworking single moms tend to be. You know, she's not bullshitting them about their father, that, you know, he just ditched them and probably isn't coming back. You know, she's very straightforward with them about death, and you know, as parents, you know, we both understand that, you know, that's hard to explain to a kid than how babies are made. Like, I remember when my father passed away, that was the first person in my daughter's life that you know, she was fairly close to that died, and you know, she took it pretty hard. She was about 10 or so, and you know, she starts to cry and says, "Why do people have to die?" And I'm like, and I'm like, you know, dealing with, you know, a lot of complicated emotions about losing my father. And I'm like, I'm not ready for this conversation.
Yeah. No. It's hard to manage somebody else's experience while you're in the midst of your own.
And I don't want to end up like, and this is not the first time that King has confronted this, and you know, the failure or refusal, let's say, to have a frank discussion about death with your children is, you know, it leads to disastrous results, as in Pet Sematary.
Yes.
When you have character Rachel, who, you know, understandably, you cannot and will not talk about death,
right?
But it is to, you know, to her detriment, let's say, to put it mildly. But yeah, so King, obviously being a parent, gets that this is a hard thing to talk about with kids. Yeah. But she's pretty straightforward with it. You know, everything dies. You're gonna die too someday. I'm gonna die. You know, since we don't know when it's going to happen, let's have fun with our time, with the time that we have.
There's one thing that will forever change the way you sleep, and it's the softest 100% organic cotton sheets from Boll & Branch. You'll fall asleep faster, wrapped in the most luxurious comfort. You'll never sleep hot again with sheets that feel breathable to sleep in. You'll experience the purest softness on night one and feel your sheets get even softer with every wash. Discover the difference with 15% off your first set of sheets at bollandbranch.com with code CUMULUS. Exclusions apply. See site for details.
If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge, from worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Getting back to the Stephen King bully thing, in a way, it's absolutely true. You take away the trappings of a Stephen King bully and you just infuse it into different types of characters. And these people are absolutely Stephen King bullies. It's a girl squad that seem to terrorize younger version of Bill.
I think Bill thought Hal was the quote unquote good one.
Oh yeah, true. Hal is the one who has the glasses, who's getting harassed. And Bill eventually joins them to smash a bunch of bananas on top of Hal's head. But every part of that reads as Stephen King. And that's what part of it I really enjoyed, was that it was another beam off the tower in terms of how things happen in a Stephen King story. And I love that they just finally end up in Maine. I love that it's a truly odd small town of Mainers. I love that it's Casco is the name of the town.
Casco.
And they list their motto as the birthplace of its locals. It's just so imaginatively unimaginative. And then, you end up with Osgood Perkins with Wolverine chops and Sarah Levy, whose face I could not exactly place. I knew who that person was. I just didn't know. She barely speaks in it. So it's hard to actually hear her voice, which is pretty identifiable.
You know who I had trouble placing? And then I was like, and then I looked him up and I was like, oh, that's right. Do you remember what movie we've seen Ricky before in?
Yes, he is our favorite babysitter / killer / adult who was beaten up by band geeks from Halloween Ends.
Yeah, wearing this unbelievable wig. You know what he reminded me of? You ever play the Lucas Arts video game Night of the Tentacle?
No.
Okay, so there is a character in it named Hoagie. And he's got the same like long black hair and like sort of like big dumb metalhead look, and
yes.
like I could not get over him. Like, he looks like Hoagie. Why do you make him look like Hoagie?
See, to me, Ricky was dressed like the worst Ramon on the set of Pet Sematary.
Yeah,
for the music video.
That's possible. That's what they were going for. But he's like an out of time sort of 70s punk rocker.
Yes. And he's the only one in town who looks like him. And then his brother is the only one in town who's in the ROTC, I guess.
And it appears to be catatonic.
Catatonic until asked if he has any ammunition. And the broadest smile crosses his face. And
this is again, as you say, this is a classic, there's some weird shit going on that we can't put our finger on, like small town.
It's very much in that vein of, like, if this was a 3-hour movie, it would be something like Tommyknockers, right? Where we would learn all the weirdness within these people's lives that made them like this. But at a crisp 90 plus minutes, they're just brushes, and you're just picking up. It's there if you want it.
Yeah, it's up to you to decide why the school, the local cheerleading squad shows up to cheer when a body is removed from
when another body shows up. 1 week into the craziest deaths this town has ever heard of, and already the high school's like, well, we don't have anything better to do. Let's cheer on the next corpse. That's how into it they are.
Body.
But in a way, that's also Stephen King coded, because this starts as a very intimate portrait of two brothers and their experiences with death. And at the end of this, it is a patented Stephen King, this town is going to hell tale.
Right.
And that to me tells me that you know exactly how to Stephen King up this story. It's not just the idea. He's really infusing it with the most madcap of Stephen Kingisms that he can possibly do it. Other references I caught were the babysitter's named Annie Wilkes.
Annie Wilkes, right.
The neighbor is run over by his own lawnmower, which I believe happens in Lawnmower Man. And that character's name, which they say out loud, is Mitch McDonald, not Mitch McConnell. But you can tell he wanted it to be Mitch McConnell. And then Bill's boss in the supermarket has a very Sideshow Bill-coated hair. And then he dies by stepping on a rake. Which I very much enjoyed. Yeah. The cackle that came out of me, and again, someone looked at me like, what are you doing? What am I supposed to do when you see a vape sticking through the skin of a guy's throat? Yeah, am I supposed to take this seriously?
I mean, it's interesting to note that the most horrifying death is the mother. Because, now granted, I don't think that's how brain aneurysms actually work.
Yeah.
But, it's also the most plausible death.
Yeah.
And, and obviously, her child sees it happen and traumatizes him for life. And, that part isn't funny. The rest of them are very funny, though. Stephen King reference that I caught, or at least projected one onto, because it's in a book rather than making it over to the movie, is The Wasp's Nest.
Oh, from Shining.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. That's a good one. Listen, these are something at a certain point, I'm like, you have to stop worrying about the physicality of this. Can a shotgun destroy somebody like a mortar shell? Not that way. But in this movie, bodies are very loosely held together.
I mean, apparently, like, you can, fit an entire rather large, wasp nest full of wasps, inside your mouth, and then they will work their way back out.
Yes. they come in to visit and they come out. They Jumanji in and then they Jumanji out.
I'm pretty sure that electrocution does not explode someone like a water balloon.
Right. Yes. And that character who's taking that midnight swim, obviously that is a National Lampoon's Vacation reference because she's in a red bikini, which is something that happens in both Vacation and Christmas Vacation. That this random hot babe is taking a swim in the middle of the night. And somehow when she touches that water, she gets scanned, but it's her entire body.
Yeah, she like goes up like a piece of popcorn.
she explodes like a clay pigeon when you're shooting skeets.
See, that's the one that I hooted out loud at. I
just don't know how else you react to it. It's just so over the top, and it keeps telling you how over the top it is. And humor is individual and everything, but I was just kind of astonished that no one else was along for the ride with me.
It's kind of like you had heard people like, y'all aren't taking this seriously.
Yeah. I mean, that's what made my screening of The Substance so much more fun was the audience was into it and was reacting constantly. But more importantly, the two people next to me who I had no idea who they were having as good of a time as I was. And like I said in that episode, I turned to them at the end. I'm like, hey, we'll never see each other again, but we had this. Like, thank you for making this so much more fun. And I wish I had those people with me at this screening because they would have gotten it, baby. And for whatever reason, there was a lot of black t-shirted horror bros and everyone seemed to be in a uniform for horror, but they didn't seem to want to enjoy it, or at least not out loud enough. It was a 9:15 on a Monday night. It's not exactly known for its hot crowds.
Well, yeah, but still, I mean, it's like, again, I don't feel this was misleading in its marketing.
No, you're right. No, absolutely not. I don't know who came into this thinking this wasn't supposed to be a comedy. It absolutely was sold as a dark horror comedy, but one that has over-the-top gore and laughs, and you're going to talk about death and feel better, in quotes, afterwards. So as far as my attitude going into it, I felt like I was rewarded for it. But you never know how a movie is going to strike certain people. I've certainly seen a few online people were like, this wasn't for me, wasn't what I was hoping it was going to be. But I also think, as you noted a little bit earlier, there's some things that are being played with very loosely here. And I do feel like that is, Osgood Perkins is not a precision filmmaker necessarily. He's going for a general sense. It's not about expert craftsmanship necessarily. It's whether or not you're on his wavelength for what he's trying to do.
Right, exactly.
We learn that Hal has grown up. He's taken, jobs that don't require him to put much out there. He's very disconnected from life. At some point, he fathered a child, but has made it his mission to be in that child's life as a minimal amount, primarily because he's afraid something terrible will happen to them. He's living his life as if it's a guarantee that the worst will happen.
Right, and he thinks that by staying away from people, he can forestall their deaths.
As opposed to any amount of engagement. Whereas his brother, what we learn is that he's kind of done the same thing. But my question to you, Gina, about Bill is where he get that abandoned warehouse money?
That's a good question, because Hal does not seem to be doing so well for himself. So it's not like it was like some sort of trust or something like that they although maybe it was, I don't know, maybe they did get something from their uncle or something, like a small amount of money to live on.
That obviously, you didn't have to pay for much once they're in Maine, because
no.
that's a very dire set of circumstances. But it's one of those things where, once Hal learns the secret of the monkey, or at least kind of intunes that is what has caused their babysitter's death, his next thing is to use it for ill intent. And he learns the hard way that when you turn that key, someone dies, but it's probably not the person you want to go.
And that comes down to, the whole classic question of, why this person and not that person?
Where's the fairness in this world? And as much as I would love it to be fair in many respects, the one place it is almost never fair is when somebody dies.
Right. It's rarely the person you want it to be.
I mean, just close your eyes. There's somebody.
I can think of two right now.
Yeah. We don't have to say, the thing is, legally we shouldn't, but you all know who we're talking about. And so the thing is, that doesn't matter. The fairness of that absolutely does not matter at all.
And right now, somebody's, nice old granny and somebody's baby is dying and instead of them. And, you can rail at the heavens all you want, but it's not gonna change anything. And the best you can hope for is, it'll happen at some point.
I just hope it's embarrassing and painful in those two particular respects.
Keep saying, gotta shit themselves to death. That I will settle for nothing less.
Although there was that one time, remember when Twitter was fun and we all watched that dipshit get off of a helicopter and walk up to the White House, and he was so out of breath because he had just gotten past a respiratory disease, a virus that had killed, millions of people, and he could not catch his breath. And it was so fucking funny.
God, it felt good to laugh again.
We used to be a proper society. But you know what? Hopefully we'll get to laugh at that again. I don't.
Listen, I literally just got a tattoo last week that says "Need to see them die," so now I have to do it.
Listen,
I'm cursing myself. I realize that, but
no. That is the thing. There are no curses. There is no good luck, bad luck. What there is a randomness of it's either all an accident or none of it is. What's more frightening? And my interpretation of that quandary has always been, it is way more frightening that someone is definitely in charge of this. That feels fucking bug nuts to me.
Well, that's true. That's true. Sometimes the randomness makes it easier to handle. Where it's like, you could die tomorrow. You probably won't. So you might as well just go about your life as normal.
And there are things you can control and things you cannot control. And, this year has been a big lesson in what I can't control, right? I can't control political elements out of my hands. I certainly can't control the industry that for a long period of time I did very, very well in, and it absolutely has collapsed. So those are things I can't control. What I can control is whether or not I drink enough water today. What I can control is whether or not I start my day by actually eating breakfast and not starving myself at noon. My body is not going to like me doing that. I have to take care of me. I can control that, but I can't control these other elements. And there is some amount. It's certainly not enough to allow me to close my eyes at night every single night, but it helps more than it hurts.
Right, exactly.
And many of, my fears are more existential than they are personal. I'm not always worried about my personal safety. I'm obviously way more worried about Becky and about Oliver and about our parents and about you and our friends and all those things. My personal sphere. But I also can't control that either. I have to simply control what I can and make the best choices I can within that, and understand that I just have to be prepared for these other elements to go sideways because, I don't know, people wanted the things to get worse. I think part of it was people thought if it got worse, directed towards these other people, that would be fun. And I'm just not that person. If whomever I want in government to control government is, I want them to make benefits for everyone, not just exclusively me. But apparently there's not enough of us this time to go around.
No, unfortunately.
Let's talk about a fake horror movie instead of the real one we live in. When Annie Wilkes is killed at the Teppanyaki restaurant, something I've thought a lot about over the years, because there's a lot of loose flying knifeware in a teppanyaki situation. Is that doesn't seem to be big in New York, but I could be wrong.
We have a couple. I mean, we have Benihana and all. And actually, the first one I went to was at Epcot. Yeah, I mean, just the flames alone. It's like, should I feel like my eyebrows are singeing off? Am I sitting too close? This seems a little. This seems a little hazardous.
This is the benefit of part of your life being sitting too close to explosions. The bad part is I don't hear so well anymore. The good part is I'm not so afraid of fire in controlled circumstances because I've seen a lot of it. But I don't always. There's a lot of showmanship when it comes to knife work. There's a lot of flinging things. Everyone's got a Motley Crue drummer solo that they're doing at all times at a teppanyaki restaurant. And
Either Motley Crue solo or Tom Cruise in Cocktail.
Yes, it's a combination of those two things. And that is the part that always weirds me out, because that is one of those things where you're like, yeah, you're obviously very, very skilled with these things in your hands. But I know all it takes is one moment of taking your eye off the ball and you chop a babysitter's head off.
Right. Or your own fingers off or something equally horrifying.
Especially if they're flirting. There seem to be, I haven't seen two people eye fuck one another that long in an inappropriate situation since Friday the 13th. And those two just eye fucking one another while singing the Jonah Rode the Boat Ashore, where the fuck that song is. Those two are so uncomfortably like, I want your penis so inside me. We get it. Go off and do it, I guess. That's the weird thing about killing those two. It was like, did anyone else learn that lesson? They went off to dry hump on fucking hardwood on a boat deck. Let the wood shards in their ass be the thing that tells them not to do that anymore. But no. Death had other plans.
Exactly.
Who cranked the monkey for that one?
Exactly.
Who cranked the monkey, I think, will be my new catchphrase on the show.
The monkey cranks thee.
Like the bell tolls for thee, but the monkey was cranked for thee. Oh my goodness. What a year. What else haven't we really? I mean, that's the thing. The movie doesn't have so much of a plot.
No.
I do think...
And the comedy is very broad. Like, you've got a lot of, like, a character says something and then immediately smash cuts to their funeral, which I love. I think that's I think that's hilarious. It's got
that hippie priest, he's got to get cast in more shit.
Yeah.
He's fucking hilarious. Like, not since that one girl talking to the one cheerleader in Scream have I seen a one scene wonder quite like that. He's really good.
Yeah.
He might go places, he might not. But that is a perfect encapsulation of what this movie is, his attitude towards that funeral.
I do like that Osgood Perkins is, brief time on screen as Uncle Chip. He's trying to connect with his young nephew.
And just letting them know, we're going to let you down. Also, we are swingers. Yeah. That's important for them to know.
and then he gets trampled by, I think the number was 67 wild horses. Yeah,
it's a very specific number. But I also love that in the voiceover that he says, and they were when they when the whoever the Quincy was of that town,
So you might say it looked like cherry pie filling.
like cherry pie filling inside of it. Those horses must have really enjoyed running over that guy.
Yeah. It only takes 67.
Really? Yeah. And you know what? They don't know what's inside that tent. But, I guess then the other part of that is, though, we saw Jason take a couple people inside of sleeping bags and bash it, but we never got to see what was inside. We got to see what was inside this time.
Yeah, they definitely.
That's the thing. Like, I feel like, especially right now, we're getting a lot of people who said, listen, these other vampire movies aren't doing this, and I need to do that. And then you get Nosferatu. And these other killer robot movies are very concerned about killer robots, but what I'm concerned about is this other plot, and you get that. And Hard Eyes was absolutely so many different slashers jammed into it, but it is also absolutely a good rom-com. That is hard. Those are two hard things to pull off, and they managed to do both. And they do that with fucking aplomb. And it's a lot. There's one kill in Hard Eyes that is so Hello, Mary Lou Prom Night 2 coded. As soon as you see it, you're like, oh, that's what I'm getting. And then there's all these other slasher movie elements that they just keep peppering in throughout that tells you, hey, we're fans. These are things you want to see, but also you're going to be entertained beyond just those kills. And for me, The Monkey has that absolute core of the hell of being trapped with the knowledge that you probably just don't get along with your fucking family.
Well, yeah, there's that. I mean, there's a certain sort of bittersweetness in that Hal and Bill are now estranged and both dealing with their family trauma and different but equally depressing and unproductive ways. Yes. Whereas Hal is denying himself a relationship with his son, and Bill is just trying to kill people to deal with his own sorrow and grief over the loss of his mother, and the knowledge that Hal was indirectly responsible for that, because you did not mean to target her when he wound up the monkey. It's just how it happened.
But that is the thing about a kid that age, is that they can understand what death is, but they don't always understand their connection to it or how they might in any incremental way play a part in it. That Red, like, he is an experiment the first time, but that experiment could absolutely be randomness. And so when it happens the second time, it's this focused rage from Hal towards Bill. And of course, fucking misses, because you can't will that on somebody else and expect it to happen. That's just not how death works. And that's a lesson he has to learn. But Bill only takes away from that fact that, according to him, his mother died, and is shocked when Hal later in life tells him, she was my mom too. And he's like, oh yeah, I guess she was. He's so wrapped up in that he cannot see outside himself.
And I think that is something, when you lose, a parent, either it is going to bring you closer to your siblings or it's going to drive you apart, because, right. You're all going to deal with it and process it in a different way. And yeah, I think forgetting that, your siblings are dealing with the same loss as you are is a very realistic thing that can happen. There's a certain selfishness that comes in grief, and that no one else could possibly be hurting about this as much as I am. No one could possibly be missing this person as much as I am. And it's very likely not true. And there's a very emotional core to this movie, that's very poignant when you consider the real life inspirations behind it. I wonder if Oz Perkins and his brother didn't struggle, with, accepting that this is a shared grief in losing your parents, especially in their mother's case, when you're not prepared for, you will never be prepared for losing your parent, and let alone losing your parent in a terrorist attack.
Yeah.
So I can, and they would have been very young, like in their 20s, I guess, and you're not. That's very young to lose your parents. It's just it's very I appreciate, and because I tend to do this myself, that he seems to be working out his grief about the situation with humor, which is which is something that is very close to my heart. And I do love that you have this very poignant moment where Hal and Bill sort of reconcile, and then Bill just dies.
Right. And dies the way that Hal wanted him to like originally.
Takes a bowling ball right to the face.
Takes Lois's bowling ball right to the noggin.
And it's a Looney Tunes death. I mean, like literally, like he just eyeballs and mush against a wall. It's everything every death in this movie, with the exception of the mother, is like a Looney Tunes death.
We'll discuss this a little bit more in detail when we get to Choose Your Own Deathventure, but I was surprised it took so long to have anything that even came close to qualifying as a get bunked.
That's true. Yeah.
Sometimes I mourn for the bits we lose. Only because you can't keep up with it. Like Get Bunked was very much a Friday the 13th phenomenon of getting killed through something else. I'm like, how long has it been since we had a Get Bunked? And I'm really hoping for one in Hard Eyes, and you don't really get it. And I was like, I don't know, were we for everything in 2024 with Get Bunked?
I think so, yeah.
It's been a dry fucking season for Get Bunked. And I sometimes think, we should put that we should make a Get Bunked t-shirt because that's ours, that's ownable. But also, if you came into this podcast in the last 4 years, do you even know what the fuck that is?
Yeah, no, that's a...
Sound off in the comments of whatever thing, like tell us on social media. Do you know what hashtag Get Bunked is, from how, and when did you start listening to the show? Because that would be a very interesting experiment. I do believe, like every podcast has generations that come into it. Where were you on that journey? Do you know what it is? Do you miss it now that it's so rare? Or is it precious because it doesn't happen all the time? I'd love to know. And we still haven't come up with a Get Bunked design. Although I do think really I got to rush skeleton hugs into the pipeline, because every time, and this has been a more recent phenomenon, just because I know Joe and Trace just did an Amityville movie. And like every time Amityville comes up, all I can think about is skeleton hugs from Amityville 3D. I'm burnt to a crisp, but I want a warm hug. I'm so bony.
You see a lot more skeleton hugs than Get Bunked.
But we have to find joy where we can. I do want to say, because we mentioned that he's in the movie, and obviously we're into spoilers, but the Elijah Wood of this is a very interesting proposal, that he is quote unquote a leading expert in being a dad, but only seems to view being a dad in the theoretical sense. He certainly doesn't appear to be that good of a dad to the actual kid living in his house.
No, he seems to view him as a trophy that he has won away from Hal, who, let's say, it kind of gives up pretty easily initially.
Yeah, this is not something he views it as abandonment, and I'm such the better guy from this. Whereas Hal's viewing this as, I'm keeping this person who I do love, but I have to keep them at arm's distance because this monkey will always fuck up my family.
I don't know. Personally, I was a little bit distracted by Elijah Wood's visible nipples through his...
a very cold set.
Yes.
It's a very tight shirt. But the size of the water bottle he's using... I'm not sure. Will people remember the Oscar, performance of that water bottle come next year. I don't know.
Yeah, it reminded me of how in Popstar, the TMZ parody, Will Arnett's increasingly enormous water bottles.
Yes. From the water bottle tour to its absolute jug at the end of it. Yeah. And the fact that when he feels any amount of pushback, he's like, okay, arm wrestle. You are a slight individual. I don't know that you're going to be able to arm wrestle Theo James, who, no matter how much they dowdy him up in here, it's just smoking fucking hot. Not that Elijah Wood is someone I would kick out of bed for eating crackers, but they're different body types.
But yeah, I mean, Theo James basically looks like James Franco without all the baggage.
Yes. Listen, I'm fine with this switch. Just sub out all the Franco and funnel it right to James. That works for me. He's just as funny. He's more charming and comes with zero baggage of sleeping with students in his acting school.
Exactly.
Ugh. There's really no bad performances necessarily in the movie. It's just whether or not people are directly into the tone of the piece. I think some people are more successful at it than others, and some people are given more opportunities to be successful at it than others.
Yeah.
The younger PD who plays Hal's kid, that's a pretty damn good acting, kid acting performance right then and there. I don't know that I've seen that kid before, but he's pretty good in this.
He's got, sullen but desperately wants to be loved down pretty well.
And he just wants to connect. Like, he just can't figure this guy out. Possibly because Hal has never really figured himself out. So how can he actually project anything approaching parental care when he's done everything within his power to avoid it? The Theo James version of Bill, I don't know that the costume of your 12-year-old funeral suit is going to have the Halloween run that Longlegs did, but
I love the reveal that, like, it shows him, like, very, very studiously trying to sitting at because apparently he learned how to use a sewing machine at some point.
That he learned. Him and Peter Parker are two people who learned how to use the sewing machine.
Make it look like that he has altered it to fit his adult body. And then the reveal that, like, he has not managed to make it fit his adult body.
No, he's turned it into a bolero jacket and this napkin of a white shirt.
And like capri pants.
Capri pants. But he's also wearing some sort of Bam Bam Bigelow flames up the side bodysuit with it.
Like, I think he's just trying to, trying to keep his torso from being exposed from wearing this.
True, yes, but it is a jarring juxtaposition of the suit top third and this, where did you get that bodysuit beneath it? To me, it absolutely read like he's wearing a Bam Bam Bigelow costume.
Yeah, I mean, of course, again, in what is keeping in the whole tone of the movie, it's sort of touching, when you see, 12-year-old Bill talk about how he doesn't want to take his funeral suit off because if he does, that means someone else is going to die. And if he leaves it on, that means that, you've got kid logic.
Right.
And now he's like, what, 35?
Yeah.
and still using this logic to wear this very small suit on his adult body.
And that he's rigged his entire house with all these traps that don't work. That was also a nice touch to see. That he's so death obsessed, but also so bad at it.
Right.
It is a fun time at the movies. And it's not trying to be anything more than it is. And I just enjoyed a lot about it. It's not as clever as, let's say, the script was for Companion. And I don't know that it was as overall successful for me as Hard Eyes was. That comes and goes. But again, a fucking killer streak right now that we're going on with theatrical horror.
Oh, absolutely.
Just mind-bendingly good times that we've got going on. And so, do you have anything else that you feel like we haven't covered when it comes to 2025's The Monkey?
Yeah, I think that, if you are, take it or leave it on horror, Other than the fact that it is pretty gory, but again, it's so silly and so over the top that like, I don't know. I feel like that even people who are a little bit iffy on that kind of thing are not going to be bothered by it. Yeah, I think this is actually this is a lot of fun. I think as dark as the subject matter is, I think they managed to do it without being particularly scary. And maybe that's why it ended up getting a C plus. Maybe people thought it was going to be scarier. I don't know. Comparing it to the short story, it's got the bones of the short story there, but he's gone in a different direction with it, and I think that's to its benefit.
Just one last quote. You triggered something in my brain from Stephen King from Danse Macabre, which I read every 5 years like clockwork. I recognize terror is the finest emotion, so I will try to terrorize the reader. But if I find that I cannot terrify, I will try to horrify. And if I cannot find a way to horrify, I will go for the gross out. I'm not proud. That's what this movie is.
Yeah.
They're not attempting for terrify. They're not really going for horrify. They're absolutely going for gross out and emotional connection.
And I think it succeeds very well in that.
So now it is time to choose our own deathventure.
Get out that scroll.
Here we go. Buckle up, everybody. There's a lot to consider here. And keep in mind, this may not be a complete list. I did not want to take out my phone while watching this movie to take notes.
There's basically like a montage of people in town getting killed.
If I miss one, my apologies in advance. This is as best a list as I could come up with. So we'll start off with hit by spear gun through gut. Spear retracts to pull out your intestines. Decapitated by a teppanyaki chef. Death by boomerang aneurysm. Trampled inside of a tent and sleeping bag by horse stampede. Flaming face impaled by for sale sign. Explode via electrified motel pool. Gored by lawnmower. Face steamed off by espresso coffee maker. Bitten by a cobra on a golf course. Blown to bits by falling shotgun. Vape forced down throat via rake. Death by wasp stampede down your throat. Parachutes don't open during your nighttime skydiving wedding. Head caved in by Lois's bowling ball. Impaled by a surfboard into a tree. That's your get bunked, everybody. Then emulated inside of a stroller and decapitated by semi-truck trailer.
I think that there's a couple of plane crashes.
True. There are a couple of plane crashes. We just don't see those bodies. But yes, plane crash could also be in there. I won't be choosing plane crash.
Did you mention stampeded?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Trampled inside of tent and sleeping bag by horse stampede. What say you? Gina Rant.
These are all really good. Well, no, I don't want Lois's death. I don't want to die of a brain aneurysm because that will.
It seems unfun. No, and she seems to be feeling every second.
Yeah, I don't want that. That's the only not fun death in the whole movie. I'm always going to take a lot of these were pretty quick. Like I don't think Bill saw that bowling ball coming.
No, his last thought was Lois, and then it's through his head. His eyeballs are separated to either side, as you mentioned, like a Looney Tune.
But I'm going to I can't. My brain keeps going back to that exploding as soon as your foot touches water in an electrified pool. Mm-hmm. That's ridiculous. And there's like nothing, right. There's nothing left. I think
and you don't have to worry about, well, did she look good in a bathing suit? You won't be able to tell. That bathing suit evaporated.
Yeah, I think there's like a foot left over. That's about it.
I think there's a foot and an arm are basically left over.
You drain out that pool. You're fine. You know what I mean? Right, nobody has to spend the money on undertaker services for me.
It is really, really fast. I mean, not to copy you, but that is the way. The only other way, as you mentioned, is Bill's getting his head caved in by Lois's bowling ball is so instantaneous. There's no way in hell I'm choosing that wasp thing or anything where you fall. And as much fun as getting bunked via surfboard and tree is, you're probably still around far too long.
Yeah,
in the aftermath of that.
And your dying thoughts are rather than like your loved ones, is who the fuck has a surfboard in Maine?
Someone who really cares about it at the end of the day. someone who finds joy in bowling, which I do for about 2 games. And then after that, it is a very steep decline in terms of my skill level. I just my arm get tired, I'm so tired. You have to use your body to put momentum behind it.
You're just looking for an excuse to bring that back out, weren't you? And
I am. People love it.
And now you're making me picture him wearing like a bowling shirt with Orlock stitched on it.
Did you know I was in the Vietnam War?
I'm going to grab a hot dog at the snack bar. Do you want one?
Should we get a pitcher of beer or we buy our own pints? Watch me tippy-toe up to the line like a Fred Flintstone. That's how he would bowl. He would tippy-toe. And then throw it with this inhuman force.
It just goes right through somebody's head like Bill.
And then his shadow is like slightly guiding it as it gets close to the gutter, and everyone's like, come on, just bowl, Nosferatu.
I told you it's Orlock. Look at my shirt.
I had it stitched. So that just about does it. People, you can find us on the socials. Rate and review us on iTunes, Spotify, your podcatcher of choice. Talk back to us on socials. We love to hear from you. And, of course, we have a Patreon where we have plenty of bonus episodes, including answering your questions, doing commentaries, and Gina has lots of extra fun stuff on there as well that's exclusive to the site. You're going to want to get on board. Gina, where can people find you on these here internets?
I write about movies and television and pop culture on my Substack, GinaWatchesThings.substack.com. And you can find me mostly on Blue Sky under Gina Does Things.
Do it today. People, check it out. Josh Hollis does our artwork. Go to RevengeBodyMemphis@bandcamp.com for this theme and all of our remixes. Until next time, don't worry, folks. The body count will continue for myself and for Gina. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.